Welcome back. This is episode number 348 of the Healthy Diabetic Podcast. I'm Coach Ken, and as always, I'm joined by my diabetes partner in crime, Graham Hubbard. If you don't know much about our story, we've got just about 50 years of lived experience with type 1 diabetes. We're both type 1 diabetics. I think it's crazy every time I think about that, Graham, with us. Before we get started, please remember that nothing that you hear on this podcast should be considered medical advice or otherwise. Please always consult your medical team before making any changes to your diabetes management. Okay, we got an awesome. I'm gonna say it again, awesome show for you guys today. Graham's going to talk. Graham's going to take us through a couple stories, and I'm going to take us through a couple stories. We're going to talk about some things that are going on right now with fear or phobias in diabetes. We're going to talk about some current updates in 2026. Mostly in this section of our conversation is going to be around different things with discounts that are going through insurances, going through the FDA, us being able to maybe get medications and things in diabetes a little bit cheaper. So Graham's going to take us through that as well. I also want to take us through, because we've been talking about it, it's come up in the last couple episodes, but we're going to talk a little bit about GLP-1. I'm going to give you guys not a high level understanding of it because I'm not a doctor, but what my understanding of GLP-1 is, what the hormones are that the pancreas actually regulates and how that interacts with GLP-1, because it is very, very important for us to understand that. And also, I would like to have a conversation with Graham about GLP-1s in general and how they're being used. Do we agree with how they're being used? Should they be used? Should they be used in type 1 diabetes? We're going to talk about that as well. And then there's some other stuff that we're going to talk about, but that's a lot of information, a lot of stuff, and we might not get into everything else. But before we start, Graham, I don't know if, Graham, if you saw in the news, it came out, I think yesterday, there's been posts, over the last, I would say, what's today, the 20th? Okay, so it's post today, that Democratic Senator Mark Warren, his daughter just died of type 1 diabetes at 36. So I just wanted to make sure we really give our hearts to the Warren family and to the entire type 1 diabetes family. It's sad when we hear about someone that loses their life because of juvenile diabetes or because of diabetes. It also had said in all of the posts that I saw today that she was dealing with other medical conditions as well, predominantly because of complications with diabetes. So our heart definitely goes out to the Warren family and the rest of the type 1 diabetes family. So Graham, let's rock and roll, man.
You said 348, so
yeah,
that you did an interview last for 347, because I talked to you at 346, and if I know anything about numbers, 346 to 348 means you left a number out.
Correct.
And
there was a guest from our last episode. Yes.
Yeah. How was it? Who did you speak to?
You were not able to be here. Yeah. So I talked to Lisa Kattensberger, and she is a mother of a type 1 diabetic. And I'm actually having her son on this Thursday. So it's going to be a really cool dynamic. We had mom on last week, and then we're going to have son on this week. And I met Lisa actually at the Breakthrough T1D Summit in Illinois, in Chicago. When I was presenting there, we were on the same panel. She's also written a children's book about Dr. Banting, who is the creator of insulin, one of the founders and creators of insulin. She wrote like a children's story of him in the army, because he was in the military, in the army as a doctor, and then he went on to private practice. He opened up his own shop. No one came, so he basically not just the story that we've heard from him creating insulin and creating this amazing drug that we all use every single day, but also what his early, I guess, life was like. And it was all put in a children's book. So it was very, very good. I've read it to my daughters a couple times. They think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating. So yeah, that's where I met Lisa. So we talked about her being an author. We talked about her as a mother with type 1 diabetes. And she was very vulnerable and opened up very much about her early struggles with, her own personal mental health with being a mother of a type 1 diabetic. So we talked very deeply about that. And I really appreciate Lisa being vulnerable and having that conversation with me. So that was 347. Fabulous episode. If you guys have not heard that one yet, go back and listen to that one. It is absolutely a fabulous episode. And I'm really excited to have her son Ryan on this Thursday, which that episode will probably come out on Friday.
This might come as a surprise to people, but I'm actually, it sounds like I'm feeding balls to Ken, but it's kind of like a it's actually two birds, one stone, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know. I never go back, and it sounds selfish and people think it's crazy. I never go back and listen to things. Even Ken, this might sound crazy to people. We don't talk. Now, these days, we don't talk about anything. We see each other's faces, and I say, hit it, and we leave it all for the air. So,
well, I mean, let's not be too modest here. Like we do communicate through a Google sheet, and
we're human.
We both put stuff like topics we both want to talk about, like, so we know have a little bit of a direction. But yes, we don't really talk throughout the week about what we're going to talk about.
It's become fun, and it has become what I thought it would be, catching up with you and talking with you like this. And people will compliment us and say your relationship or blah blah, and like you're getting genuine. Like even back in the day, two type 1s, Ken would come to my house. We'd be sitting in my basement, and he knows, between life, business, kids, COVID, there was always something to talk about, and we would just leave it for the air and we would talk about it. So, okay. So that was 347. Now you do 348. Couple ADD notes that I write down. I always laugh about this, and I forgot to tell you, and you stopped doing this and you've changed it. But back in the day, you would always say, I'm touched. Like you would say, I'm touched. Like you would talk about, like when you're talking about old episodes or people's like, their participation with the show and this and that. You've switched the terminology, but I always want to ask you, like, did you ever like catch yourself saying I'm touched and like, maybe I should like not like say that? Or
what context am I saying when I'm touched?
Well, like you'll tell like a story.
Like, what are you talking about? What are you
that's my
talking
point.
about?
Like, if you're talking about like a kid's book, you can't be like, I was touched. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
I guess. Yeah, I understand, but I guess like
nobody was like, hey, quit saying you were touched.
No, I meant to say that to me.
I should have told you that a long time ago.
That's what. Do you remember like something in the past that I've said I'm touched by?
Dude, so this is another question, because I wanted to ask about the author. You know, we didn't have video, so you wouldn't get my reaction, but I think my reaction back in the day, I'm sure I was always laughing. You would be on like a rant about something, like, yeah, and you know, and I met this guy and I was touched.
I can imagine myself saying that. I can totally imagine myself saying that. Yeah.
Bro, so I have an uncle whose name is Richmond, but back in the day, if your name is Richard or Richmond, you go by Dick. So sometimes I'll be telling a story, and I'm like, and Dick, and Dick, and Dick, and people are like, dude, if I didn't know what you were talking about, it sounds like you're talking a lot about Dick.
Well, you know what's funny is my wife's uncle's name is Richard, and we call him Dick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Richard or Dick. But that was a thing. Like back in the day, it wasn't what it used to be, which is funny. I heard the guess. You'll know it once I say it, so I won't even ask you to guess. You know what name has gone away almost overnight because it's part of popular? What's a name that people use now? What's like a slang name that someone used? It's a woman's name when you're being like a bitch. A Karen. A Karen. I heard like literally the name Karen does not exist. It went away overnight, and it's just so random, right?
I know some Karens.
You don't know any brand new Karens. How many Karens actually do you know? I ask people this. How many actual physical Karens?
Two or three.
Yeah. My niece, this is such a good story. My niece is in college, and she was here for dinner recently, and I said, do you know any Karens? Like generally, I was like, you're 20 years old. Do you know any Karens? She thinks long and hard, and she's like, man, I don't think I really know any Karens. Like nobody that really acts that way. And I was like, no, do you know anybody named, like she thought for like a good like 20 seconds.
She was saying like, no, I don't know anybody that acts like a Karen.
Yeah, exactly. She thought I meant, I was like, no, you idiot.
Oh, that's great.
I know.
That's
so
hilarious.
Funny. Okay, back on course.
How do you always seem to take us off course every single time?
But I already know how. I always know how to get back. How was your? I put weekend notes. I spent my weekend in a man cave paradise, bro. I had multiple TVs going. I had projectors going because it was WrestleMania, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and sometimes they're on different apps and stuff, so you can't split the TV. So I did playoff. I mean, and if you're an Ohioan like us, that was the very first game of the weekend was Cavs on Saturday.
Yeah, they won.
And then they do 2 nights of wrestling. Any interest in WWF? Never watched
Not
it.
really. I mean, I did when I was a kid. I was big time into it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't watch it anymore, so I'd have to like really get into the storylines. And I got a client. It's funny because I have a client who's super into it, and he watched all 3 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
So
on
you're
he has ESPN Unlimited.
You're looking at another one of those. I didn't just watch 3 days, bro. I was on Netflix watching The Vault. My daughter was here with her friends, my nieces. They were out. We were wrestling all weekend. It was a wrestling weekend at this house.
God.
No, but I will loop this to diabetes. I did think about something that we often talk about, and I really dug it home recently about, my relationship with myself, or call it the mirror, and my thoughts about myself. And people talk about, I think a lot of what's happening with people these days is self-confidence, is belief in themselves. What I see in a world like wrestling, and there are some faces that I think do such a pretty beautiful job of what it is. They are obsessed with themselves. They are obsessed with what they see in the mirror. They are selling you themselves at their whatever they are.
And it's part of the entertainment.
Yeah, correct. But add any athlete to that now, right? Add any athlete to that equation. They chose to look in the mirror and say, I love what I see. I'm going to do the best version of that I can with it. And I remember you not to put it, I hate to use that term, put a gun to my head, but you put a gun to my head, and that's what I said. Given what I've been given, I feel like I have done the perfect job of the gift that was given to me. And when I watch something like wrestling or the playoffs, that elite level, I think that really goes hand in hand with diabetes. Is if you dropped everything and just fell in love with yourself and what you're seeing in the mirror, everything would change. Everything would change. Truly. And it's like, this is the most disgusting advice I could give people. Being in the best shape of your life, seeing your muscles, seeing your there is nothing greater. There is looking in the mirror and being proud. I know it sounds so gross. And I know, whatever.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying.
I would say achieve that, but always have a heart, be a good person, give back. But I see it with Rock, like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, or like a John Cena. Who else has, Dave Bautista? Bautista was in that. Hulk Hogan, all these guys. I think they are doing something good by being a model of, they're not perfect.
Well, yeah, but that's part of their persona. That's part of who they are. That's part of the lore of that individual, right? And because you think about The Rock, you think about someone like The Rock, all of the stuff that he's been able to accomplish over his lifetime from an entertainment perspective. You don't think about The Rock as Dwayne Johnson. You think about The Rock as the wrestler, the movie star, the lifter, the person that's always insanely looks always huge and in shape. That's who we personify as that individual, right? So I think the really interesting piece, and not to take this over from you, but the really interesting piece of what you're talking about when we talk about diabetes is we can have our own perception about diabetes. We can have our own perception about who we are, but or what we are, who we are with diabetes, or how diabetes is affecting our lives, both in a positive and maybe negative way. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. Do you think The Rock wakes up, Dwayne Johnson wakes up every single day and okay, as soon as I walk out my door, I have to be The Rock. I have to be, that person that character that I'm playing on TV right now, or in the movies right now. No, he just walks out and that's who he is. And I think that is the same thing with us living with diabetes. It doesn't matter what other people see. It doesn't matter what other people's perspective of us living with diabetes is. All that matters is who you want to be, who you believe you are, right? If you're someone that believes that you're not winning at diabetes, okay, then let's figure out how we can get you to win. Let's think about how we can reframe how you're living with diabetes so you can win, so you can feel amazing, so you can go out and accomplish anything in the world and anything that you ever want any dream that you ever wanted to do, right? That's I like from what you're saying, I love the perspective of what you're saying because that's what it should be like when we're living with diabetes. It shouldn't be I'm walking out the door, but crap, I got to get my diabetes kit. I got to make sure I have all my insulin. I got to get all my supplies. And like now I have all this stupid anxiety. Am I going to be late? Like, don't let that part of diabetes take you over and make your existence in this life feel so awful and horrible and anxious and like, that's not what it should be. How can we deal with all the things that we have to do with diabetes, but still feel freaking amazing when we walk out the door?
You know, something I put this in quotes that The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, has always sold is his cheat days and his cheat meals.
Yeah.
And if you've ever followed, and I don't do social media, but those stories make their way to the news and things like that. But more importantly, and somebody else that always talks about this is Joe Rogan, is he will say 2 days later, like, I feel fat. You know, I got that like, I got that like gut, that guttural, that extra weight. And guess what?
Yeah.
Back to the gym, back to the drawing board. Like, enjoy being a human. And The Rock, Dwayne Johnson has done a great job of that. What I love about John Cena is he's given back. Like, he is the guy who gives all of his time back to kids and experiences and things like that. And what I was saying is what I like about it is there are ugly words, selfishness, self-loathing, all these people that you take it a little too far where you're only thinking about yourself. But why I always say, like, my advice for life is love thy neighbor, because if you can love thy neighbor, that means you love yourself, right? And it's a belief that I made a long time ago. This isn't what people want to hear, but this is the truth. When I wake up in the morning, my family isn't the most important thing to me. My diabetes, like, that just is what it is, right?
And if that means the most important thing,
yeah, hands down. Like, even if that means, hey, I'm going for a run, because I mean, that was a battle with my wife and I. But I will always say, like, one thing I think I did right was I dug a stake in. Like, I want my wife, like, well, no, it sounds selfish, but like, I want my wife to wake up and know what it's like to be gone because I'm running, or, hey, you might have thought something, but I need to go for a quick run, or I don't know what it is, like running to I got to build up. I don't know how you pick up your prescription. Oh, it's different. Right now I got a buildup of scripts at the CVS, essentially waiting for me to just be at the wits. I don't know if you do this. I'm at the very wits end of all these scripts, and I just draw it out. Do you draw things out as long? God, that's such a that must be such a diabetes and guy. We're guys, we're stubborn. But
no, so when you say draw it out,
I've lost myself. Like I'm just drawing out, like, I'll keep using needles a little bit more. I'll use like very ends of my bottles of insulin. I'll, like, I got one more CGM to put in, but I'll do a couple days of finger sticks until you know what I mean?
Till you go pick it up.
Like, every hour, to me, every hour is an hour saved, is an hour in my pocket
I always think about the time it takes to actually get that prescription filled, because it, like, for me, sometimes it literally takes a day. Sometimes it'll take 3 days. So it's like, what I always end up, even though I always say I'm not going to, I always seem to end up waiting to the last minute to get on the app.
Yeah, me too.
I'm with Walgreens, right? So I just get on the app and, like, I can literally, like, okay, I need this, this, and this, and then they give me a time frame, they put it through the insurance, and they give me a price point. It's super easy, and I always seem to wait to the last minute when I'm, like, almost out of things before I actually get that prescription filled. And I'll say this one thing, and then you can take over, we can move on. I'll say this one thing that has also helped me, though, especially with the CGMs, with the time frame it takes, or the time frame between the last CGM and you might have like 2 or 3, maybe 4 days, maybe a week before you're allowed to get another script, right? So it has helped me in that aspect with some things in my diabetes journey of, like, you're right up to that, You're right up to the end of that time frame where you got like a couple days or 3 or 4 days before your insurance will pay for the next script. So are you gonna like wait, or are you just gonna, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
I always end up doing that as well, or that waiting to the last minute has helped me in that aspect, I guess.
I used to say this, and I quit the older I got, that diabetes is like shelving in your garage. So it's like you got a bunch of things stacked in the back of your head that aren't pertinent, but it's like so for me it's scripts, right? And it's exactly what you just said. Like my current situation is I messed up 2 of my immediate 15-day Dexcoms, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, that's 30 days you got to build up. So I'm using more fingers. I know, bro, stop. You're saying no. This is just my brain, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I have 1,000 other things to worry about, 1,000 other. So I'm like in my head, like the more finger sticks, I already went online. I just don't, whatever. This is the same thing, by the way. God, we're not going to even get through anything today because we're going to get sidetracked. You wrote me about a survey. I got 1 page through a survey and I was like, I ain't got time for this shit, bro. Wait, I
Oh
just
my
like,
God, dude.
and
It takes
and you're
5
going to hate me
minutes.
for, I know, and you're going to hate me for that. I read a book a couple years ago. It's essentially about a CEO who just quit answering his email. And I'm not saying I'm, I just kind of feel like the older I get and the less patience I have. And to loop in what you're saying, the more I'm told what to do with, like, I feel like that is with diabetes, the more I have just carved out, like, there is only one scenario that works for me, It's only the people that are close to me that understand, like, and Ken is laughing as I'm saying all these things, but and I'm so now distracted with so many things that we have discussed that I don't people organize themselves in a very different way, but I have a lot in my head, and you just hit the nail on the head though. Like I always wonder if it is about money. Like is it
What do
about
you
money,
mean?
or is it about like, well, this is like on this topic, is it about money, or is it a reflex of, oh my God, like another like that like feeling? Like when you were talking, I imagined you standing at the store looking at the pharmacy desk like, whatever, I'll go next time, like, and you just kind of like, no.
Dude, if I'm going into the store, if I've
How often do
already
you leave your
ordered it.
house? Do you leave your house every day for something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
every single
So
day.
you're always out of the house?
Yeah, because I'm going to the gym.
Yeah. See, I often, bro, I like, I didn't even know the last time I was on the highway. I go to the highway to go to the airport. That's it.
But you don't have a reason to do that,
Everything
because
is here.
everything
Everything
that
is
you do in
close.
your day is so close. You don't have to go on the highway.
Well,
I
no, no,
drive to
no.
work in the highway.
No, hold on. Answer what I'm asking. Do you feel like you've gotten to a point though where it's almost like a bad attitude that you have about, like,
Going to get a pharma, going to get
not just that, there's this, you got to go to get a script, and then you got this, and then you got that and that, and sometimes you want to tell diabetes, like, dude, like, you don't own me, you don't control me, like, let me, like, do you let diabetes drive you, or do you drive it? Maybe that's the
Dude,
question.
I totally drive diabetes. Diabetes has no influence in my daily decisions whatsoever. Not one single influence
Are
in
you sure about that?
anything I
You
make.
guarantee you
One,
guarantee you drive everything. You drive
I
everything.
drive. That's the mindset, because I'm really glad we're talking about this. I'm
Yeah, because I
really,
don't
really
even know if
glad
I agree with you, and I have that same mindset. So
I'm really glad that you're bringing this up. So this is the whole mental health part of diabetes that I'm constantly talking about. If you are someone who allows diabetes to dictate decisions on what you do in life, we need to work on reframing that. You aren't wrong, right? Me saying that to anybody, even you, Graham, I'm not saying that you are wrong in that thought process. What I'm saying is you need to learn how to reframe it so you're not having this like, oh God, I gotta do this now. I gotta do this. That's not good for anything, because it's increasing cortisol levels, it's increasing stress levels, which is gonna make you more insulin resistant over time, right? So for me, even though diabetes is challenging, even though diabetes is really hard sometimes, right? I've dealt the last 2 days, I've had blood sugars all over the place, right? Because of either decisions that I'm making in the moment, or for, I don't know, whatever reason. So blood sugar is just all over the place, right? And in that moment, some people would say, diabetes, I hate it. Screw you, diabetes. This is bullshit. Me, I'm just like, okay, what do I gotta do to fix this? Oh, I didn't take enough insulin here. I'm continuously eating these chips and I didn't take enough insulin. Oh, I didn't exercise today. Oh, I didn't do this. Or hey, I did this. I'm wondering why this happened. That's very curious. I'm very curious. I'm interested about that. That's interesting, right? I'm not giving diabetes fuel to increase my insulin resistance through stress, cortisol levels, make me pissed off and have anxiety. I don't let it do that, because I'm living my life and I just have diabetes. I don't have diabetes and I'm living my life. I'm living my life and I have diabetes. I don't have diabetes and I'm living my life. Or I don't have diabetes and I'm living my life. It's two separate things. It is two separate ways of living. It is 100% two separate ways of living.
Can I throw a wrench in by throwing a fact in?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me throw because you're good at dissecting. I was 8 at diagnosis versus you were how old? 19?
25.
Boom. There you go.
Yeah. What's your point?
So what about that? Like, what about
What do you mean? What about that?
What about the fact that like we've said this? I don't even know if I have a memory before diabetes.
What does the memory matter? What is the memory of not having diabetes or having diabetes your whole entire life?
Well,
how does that change and dictate the way you emotionally deal with the condition?
Well, think about what you're saying.
Regardless.
Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. Are you the car or are you the driver?
Dude, you're the driver. 100% you're the driver.
That's not necessarily how the approach might have been given to a young kid,
100%. And that's why we're having these conversations.
Or
that's why I'm saying, go ahead.
But maybe the deeper thought being like some type of fear that is like a deep rooted fear. And, I have talked about my mental health diagnoses along the way. And I always attribute a huge, huge part of my young life was just the fact that I went to Children's Hospital, 4 times a year. That alone, I'll never forget that. It was just, I don't know why. It's just that will always stick with me. Just the experience of like seeing people hurting, to put it bluntly, just to see people hurting, it's weird to think of yourself as the driver in that sense. 'Cause for lack of a better term, nobody wants to fucking be there, bro. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. So that's kind of like, that's like the weird part that people might not understand and I'm really happy to hear you're probably the only person that I've ever met in this community that's talking to and interviewing the caregivers and the people that are like the author and things like that, because it's a lonely experience. And it's like I said, it's a weird, it's like nobody feels like the driver at Children's Hospital. And you can make the analogy all day and you're exactly right. And that's your job to do that. It's my job to do that, but it is a big question. It's not just a big question. It's like it is the question of roots.
The question.
It is the question.
One of the questions.
It is the question of the roots. Correct. And it's funny that we've never talked about. Yeah. Go ahead though. Keep going. Now that I say what I said, like if that were the fact, then
I personally, Graham, this is my opinion, right? And this is,
don't be a bitch.
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay. This is coming from not only the coach's perspective and the person that wants to just instill positivity in living with diabetes, but also someone that lives with the hardship, the challenges every single day. I will never understand from an experiential place. I will never understand what it's like to go through childhood, puberty, teen years, high school with having type 1 diabetes. I will never understand that because I was done with school by the time I got out, or by the time I got diagnosed. I was done with high school. I was done with college. I had just graduated from college. So I can't understand from the experiential, right?
Is that a word?
Is that
from the point of experience? From the point of experience. So I was writing that
experiential. I think that's a word. Is that a word?
Wow, I will verify. Go ahead.
If you're on the live right now, tell us if that's a word. I think it's a word.
I'll look.
I will never understand that person's fears. I will never understand that person's emotions because I didn't have to deal with that. I didn't have to go through that. Now, that doesn't mean that my diagnosis as an adult is any less traumatic than someone that's diagnosed at 8 years old, like yourself. I think one of the biggest differences is the fact that still pediatric diagnosis is getting way more initial education and empathy and compassion than adults. I think that is one thing that still frustrates me very much. So to just go off of what you're saying, I don't think the age matters. What I think matters is where and how long does it take you to get to a place where this does not control your every thought, where you don't think about diabetes 24/7. And maybe for the people that think about people that think about diabetes 24/7, maybe that's hard for them to understand because they're constantly thinking about it. 100%. And I'm not saying that if you are thinking about diabetes 24/7 that you are in the wrong. Not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying for me and my mental health, if I had to think about diabetes 24/7, that would be enough to drive me up a wall, would be enough to raise my cortisol, would be enough to stress me out all the time, would be enough to want me to just wash my hands of diabetes and go back into diabetes distrust and diabetes burnout because I wouldn't want to deal with it. It's too much. So if we're going down that route because you're thinking about diabetes 24/7 and you have those thoughts, you have those emotions, we need to work on reframing how you think about this condition and how you deal with this condition. That's just, for me, that's my personal opinion because I can't imagine the people that have to deal with diabetes 24/7. Like I said, my blood sugars have been like fluctuating like crazy over the last 2 days, 2, 3 days. Not anywhere in those last 2 or 3 days was I constantly looking at my phone. Was I constantly thinking about why isn't it coming back down? Why does it say it's low now? Why does it not seem like I've taken enough insulin? I feel like I've taken it. Not once did I have those crazy emotions. Only a couple times it was like, oh man, this still is not coming back down. I'll just give myself some more. And then I moved on with my life. That's how those decisions should be. They shouldn't take you all this time and now you're so up in your head, you're so distraught about it. I hate this condition. I hate this condition. Those emotions are not doing you any good. Those conversations with yourself are not doing any good. Now, I will also say this. I've had those conversations with myself 100%. So I'm not saying because you're having those conversations, again, you're not doing things the right way. What I'm saying is if you're constantly having those conversations with yourself, we need to work on reframing how you think about and move through the day with diabetes.
Yeah. I'd say you weren't teeter-tottering on getting away from the idea of what works for you, but as you spoke, you said something that I thought resonated with me is 24/7. And I always say it's like 24/7 versus reality. Like the 24/7 brain, 24/7 brain coverage like works for me. That's just my brain. Like I know what I know what it's just. We're talking about two different things even on that because that works for me. But you're also talking about people that it requires like a lot more. And I do, as you say, I sympathize with people that it requires a lot more of an effort.
And it does for some people, right? 100%. And that's okay.
No, and that's my saying.
That's okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
That's
like,
okay.
It's if you can balance it, healthfully. God damn it! By the way, you got experiential. You got your first one right. That was good.
I told you, baby. I told you that was a word. Yes.
And I even muted everything. I don't know if people heard that I was playing. It was even hearing the audio. Experiential. Very good. I don't even know what I was saying is if if it can be, if it's healthy processing, you call me out on it without maybe realizing it, but a lot of what I do have at 40 years old, having diabetes for 30 plus years is like an attitude, an attitude that, you know that we talk about this all the time, like almost like a bad attitude that drives me, but it has worked for me. Hold on. Let me finish.
Okay. Cause I need to say something about that.
And you can, but for now it works for me. But there is like always the notion that I do know that, life comes in stages and there's different chapters to be written, and can't always be mad. I can't always be mad at life. You can't stay mad at life. That's, and I don't feel that way, but sometimes I'm like, well, obviously that's what has gotten me to where I am. Like, so I have to like, before you say what you're going to say, I do swallow that pill all the time. Like I am hyper aware of it, but bro, it works, man. It's worked wonders, bro. It's worked wonders.
Graham, so that's the key though, right? Because you're talking about something that's very important. You're talking about this thought process of you being hard on yourself or you having this specific like hard mentality about diabetes. And I think there's a difference between being hard on yourself and being hard on yourself and allowing those emotions to take over and hold you back. You're hard on yourself, but I'll tell you what, you don't let that shit hold you back. It fuels you.
Yeah.
It makes you go. It makes you figure shit out. That's the difference. If you're listening to this and you are really hard on yourself. You think about diabetes 24/7, but you have great numbers. You have the blood sugar stability that you want. You have the A1C you want. You don't have tons of roller coaster ups and downs. You don't have tons of lows, and your mental health is in alignment with what you want. Then that's awesome. That is how you've made life work within diabetes, or diabetes work within your life. Where on the flip side, if you have really good numbers, you have good blood sugar stability, you have all these things, but your mental health is out of alignment, and you absolutely hate your life and you hate living with diabetes, that's a problem. The numbers don't matter then, because your numbers are also very important to how you feel. Think about like that person, think about all the anxiety that you have with living with diabetes, all of the hardship that you're putting in, that the 24/7 thought processes, putting all of your time and energy into getting those numbers that you want and those numbers that you've been able to get. Think about how much better those numbers would, one, feel to you, how much better those numbers might even be if you just align your mental health with diabetes. Like, I think that is the most, that's literally why mental health is pillar one, the most important pillar, most important thing of everything that we talk about. Because if it's not in alignment, it does not matter what your numbers are, because it's not going to last. I promise you, it won't last.
I always use the analogy. I had a friend who was diagnosed like 35, and the only person he knew with diabetes, the guy kept his blood sugar at like 85, but he ate the exact same thing every day. He did the same thing. The guy was miserable.
Yeah.
And I always remember that, because then someone's like, dude, are you an idiot? Go talk to Graham. Because then he started talking to me. And it's like, oh, just you can like live life and be normal and not be, and
Yeah.
I always just think it's funny. It's like, oh, here is exactly you could talk shit about mental health all day. People that like still to this day, I think they like think it's not real. I could tell you exactly how to take care of diabetes down to the number down to 85, but you will be so miserable that your brain will. It's like, have you ever heard about this quiet room that they designed? There's like a room where it's so quiet that they challenge people to sit in there, and nobody's gotten past like 15 minutes. Have you heard it? You know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I've heard of this. Yeah. But
so you can look this up. It is a completely designed, manufactured room that is completely soundproof, to the point where like you could hear people say like you could hear your blood moving, but nobody has made it past like a very small number, whatever the number is. It's very, very small, and it's just the proof there that there is no question. There is no question that, and maybe why
it's hard to sit with your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions.
Well, it's not, but I guess I was going more towards the angle where in a way, like hurrah for us for being at the front end of diabetes and the movement and what's happening, because it's not just insulin prices and technology and CGM, but it's people realizing, oh, you have a real disease. You have an autoimmune disease, and a lot of that has to do with being the best version of yourself. And a lot of being the best version of yourself has to do with mental health, So, and
you can't be the best version of yourself if it's not in alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. But I know you I was talking about like toting myself earlier, and you like rolled your eyes, but when I'm out with you, I think we are both the image. Like, I hate this. I'll go back to this point, but if you just said those two guys walking at you who have type 1 diabetes, anybody in their right mind would stop and be like, what? Like that is a.
They don't know what type 1 diabetes is.
Okay,
that's my argument. I know what you're saying. Yeah,
You get what I mean. You get the point.
I get what you're saying.
You get the point that I'm saying. And
well, we're not perfect.
My point is, it's probably becoming a lot more evident to people that a lot of people have diseases that they live with. A lot of people have X, Y, and Z that's happened to them, but they're not crashing and burning. But that doesn't mean they're not human. You just said it. That doesn't mean they're not human. I've said on this podcast, I'll say it 1,000 times. You're only looking at me talking because of physical and mental medications that that are necessary to make Graham happen. But I've done what works for me. Which pillar is that, Ken? Which pillar is that? Do you have a pillar that's what works for you, or is that just like a thought? I think that something we talk about.
No, that is having all of the pillars in alignment to what you want.
Yeah.
That's where that is.
Yeah.
That all of them coming
together.
That's
the roof. That's the roof that they
all of them coming
support.
Together.
Yeah.
All of them coming together creates what works for you. So we got like 10,
No,
15
it
minutes.
doesn't matter. Hold on, because I got all the notes and we'll just get through.
Okay, well, I want to go through some of these stories.
Well, hold on. I don't know. Are you announcing this is Monday, by the way. You were talking about people being on live. People probably aren't, because we are officially
changing the
it is
live
Monday, Wednesday,
yes,
2 p.m.
We said that in the last episode, yeah.
But we've kind of been threatening it and talking about it, so.
Well, it's changed now. So
Well,
now
don't
it's
say
Monday
that,
and Wednesday at 2 p.m.
You told me after the last episode that we had said something about whatever. Last episode we were talking about tomorrow. We had said tomorrow, but then we ended up not recording the day after. Whatever. I'm confusing people. I have a question. I want to go back to something, back to the very beginning of the episode, and this is fun because we're not only talking about this, but the last episode and some other things. When you had the mother, the author, the caregiver on, was she on screen? Or was it just okay?
Nope. Everything is live video now. Everything is live, or everything is on video now.
So when you have a guest, they're in our studio, but they're not just talking with their computer speakers and headphones and things like that.
They're live just like this. We can see each other.
Yeah, but we have Zooms and microphones and things like that.
Yeah, so they're just talking through their computer, or if they have a pair of headphones or whatever.
And so how has like interviewing and that technology and that deciding to do it this way, like what has it done for you? Like, has it, like, are you learning more about diabetes by, I mean, okay, obviously you're meeting guests, you're doing panels, you're doing things like that, but do you think, man, to go back to like some crazy element, like we're talking about mental health, and is like the emotion of speaking to somebody and always seeing them changing you, like, what is that doing? What's that doing? What is that doing for you? Even like, not just from the perspective of me who has it, somebody who has it that you don't know, but like a caregiver, a storyteller, like, what's that doing for you? I always think about that.
I would say there's two things that it's done for me during the podcast, being able to interview people. The first thing, the number one thing that it's done for me is it is dramatically influenced how I manage my diabetes because of everything I've learned.
Really?
Because of the things that I've learned, because of the things that I have talked to people about what works for them, the things that I've been able to experiment with because I've talked to other people and learned what they do. I think that is the number one thing that the podcast has done for me personally, is it's influenced how I manage my diabetes. Because if it wasn't for the podcast, I would have never met Ginger Rivera, who introduced me to Afrezza. If it wasn't for the podcast, I would never met probably at least 10 other diabetics who are just on MDI pens and not even using a CGM. So having those conversations with those individuals allowed me to understand and realize, like, shoot, yeah, this is an option. What my doctor keeps telling me, which is I got to be on a CGM and I got to be on an insulin pump, that's not actually the reality. I don't have to do that. I can try something else, right? So I would have never been able to learn those things and try to experiment or mentally go through, how do I want this? Do I want to do this? Or is this actually going to work? How am I going to do this? And everyone would have went through that reflection period. The second thing that doing this show has done for me personally is allowed my circle of influence to exponentially grow more than it ever could have. Right, which means
of influence, or you mean inward and outward things coming in and going out?
My circle of influence. Who can I text right now when I'm having a diabetes issue or challenge?
Okay.
Or who?
So you mean inward and outward? You get what I'm saying?
No, hold on. So my circle of influence, the people that I talk to, the people that I've talked to, the people that I continuously talk to on social media, those influential people that have a big influence in how I manage my diabetes, right? That's one thing. The second piece to it is my diabetes community, the diabetes community, because I would have never met these two guys that are on MDI, don't even do a CGM, from Australia, if I wouldn't have done the podcast. These two amazing, one dude's a surfer, I think the other dude was a personal trainer or something like that. Like, two dudes that I would have never met. I've talked to people from the UK. I've talked to people from Russia. I've talked to people from Spain. I've talked to people from China. I've talked to people from India. I've talked to so many freaking people. Tons and tons of people. I mean, obviously way more people in the US that I've talked to, but those people that I've talked to in the 5 years, in the 348 episodes that we've had, probably, I would say 50 of those episodes, maybe 50 of those episodes that were solo episodes where we didn't have a guest, maybe a little more than that, maybe 75. But of all of those people are now in my diabetes community. Those people now know about me. Now I know about them. Now I know their story.
Do you
Now
go back and
I can articulate some of those stories.
have you gone back and listened to yourself years ago and thought about and heard what you're
I
saying?
have before, yeah. I haven't in a long, long time because remember when we first started the podcast, when it was the 2 type 1s, like I would go back and listen to every single episode. And now I don't really do that anymore.
Bro, you should.
At least
sounds like
when they're live. I listen to them all the time when I'm editing them, of course, but
don't tell like anybody you're doing this because it sounds so self-indulgent, but you should seriously study yourself. Like,
dude, I
you
do.
spend a whole
All the
week.
time.
No.
I do all the time. When I listen to myself, when I'm editing stuff,
But go back
I
and
am
like
listening. I am
listen to
listening.
5 years ago. Go like
I do. I go back and listen to things all the time, especially because the new stuff that's being posted on Instagram from my social media company, they're taking old episodes from years ago and repurposing some of that content. So yes, I'm constantly listening to myself. It's like the thing in sports. It's like you're listening to film. You're watching game film.
Yeah. Did they pick out me in particular that he's like, man, he's got some
No.
Graham's really got the highlights. You know what you said, and it's so funny that I had mentioned how, we always talk about how you'll never really understand being in this community or being type 1 or the things that you think about or the perception, but diabetes, and maybe we need to be the historians that are writing about it, but diabetes has been this progression of technology and things getting better and better and better. But if you look now, it's exactly what you're saying. And now it's plateaued almost. And there's like this movement that's kind of going back down of the people that are like exactly what you just said, a surfer. I call myself like a camper, like I grew up backpacking. Like I think of someone that likes to go into the woods and like, if you just nail the diabetes, you can actually take a step back from that. Like there is a movement of MDI and no CGM and that's wild to people. But to me, that is where diabetes type 1 and type 2 have a lot in common. It's always about work harder at your health to get rid of things, right? Let me say that again, to get rid of things, to lessen the need, to lessen the blow. That's the same thing with insulin sensitivity. I know I have no room to talk because I'm like, A+, best ever. Nobody's even heard of how good I am.
The most amazing ever.
The best at it. Like that's such a Donald Trump. I know, but it's true. Like you can't even compete with my insulin sensitivity. But it is such a powerful thing that you were saying in that. And I love that. And I love that something that I don't touch at all.
What was I saying?
You had mentioned those guys like from Australia that you've met people that are like,
yeah.
It reminds you, wait. It reminds you, there's a community, but you just said that guy himself was told, you got to have a CGM, you got to have a pump, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you don't have to have any of that, Jonathan.
No, I was saying that
I know.
that I've heard over time, yeah.
But I'm sure they did too at some point.
Was telling him.
But I'm guarantee they did because I know the world. I know the world that we live in. But you also talked about I shit on it and I always will, but it's almost poking fun at the influence. Do you consider your word an influence to people? I don't want to say you're an influencer, but let's ask the hard questions. Like, are you influencing people at this point?
100%. We both are. We both have since 2020.
Okay. Go ahead.
Since the first.
And what?
For me, 2019.
In your
head,
for me,
2019.
What are you doing?
Talking about diabetes.
Okay.
That influences people.
Okay.
Your opinion when you talk.
What's deeper? What is it though? What really is it? What are you doing?
What really is what?
What are you doing that I would see as influential? When it
talking about diabetes. Talking about diabetes is an influential thing, right? So hold on. Okay, so hold on. I'm going to explain this because you're obviously not getting it.
No, so I'm pushing you to answer my question.
Deep. I am answering your question. This is a 100% like answer to your question. You're asking me, what am I doing that's influential to people? or that's influencing people. Me just speaking about my own experiences, me sharing other people's stories, me sharing my failures, other people sharing their failures, me sharing the positivity and advocating for diabetes. That is influential in every sense of the word, because there are so many people out there that are struggling mentally, struggling physically with this condition. And those people are searching and praying for someone to help uplift them and to give them a positive light to step into. That's what both of us are doing in this podcast, Graham. That's what you have been doing since 2020 when you started talking about this stuff with me. It's what I've been doing since 2019 when I did my very first event, when I actually was talking about diabetes in front of an audience. Over the last 6 years, 7 years now, I have been talking and advocating for all of us living with diabetes, even type 2 diabetes. That is influential or influential to people. When you go on Instagram, people are watching two different things in the diabetes community. Well, really three. They're watching for news. What is the newest thing? What is the newest news and how are people using it? They're watching for the positiveness of diabetes because they want to be uplifted. And part of that positiveness is education, the education on how to live with diabetes from a global perspective. And then the third thing, which so many people kind of dive into and want to I would probably say want to see the most, is other people living with diabetes, other people telling their stories, other people telling and giving their opinions, which is crazy to me to think of. You'd think that someone that is struggling wants to be educated on how to live with it. But really, I feel like people are more influenced by someone's opinion on what's working or not working for them, which is why I love the position that we're taking in this podcast, because we're not talking about, if you do these things, this is how you live with diabetes. We're not saying that. And nowhere, in no essence of anything that we have ever said on this show, whether it's me and you talking about at the very beginning, whether it's me and you talking now, or whether it's me talking for the past 3 years without you on the show. We have never said that. Do this, and this is how you manage diabetes. No, we're giving our personal opinions, which allows people to have data and understanding. Well, Graham and Ken said this on that last week's episode. That was so interesting. I think I can deal with that. I think I can take that information and use it in my management, and now my management's way better. That's what this is all about. And that's what people are looking for. That's what influences people. What data point that is real quick that I can take away, that I can use and be actionable right now. Where I would think when I first started, it was like, man, I got to tell people what diabetes even is. I got to tell people what this is. I got to tell people what this terminology is. I got to tell people how to deal with this emotion. I got to tell people how to deal with exercise. Like, that's all fine and dandy, but that's not what people are really searching for. What people are searching for is those little data points that I can take away, that maybe I have to hear them 3 or 4 times for it to click. But those data points that I can take away right now, that I can put into my management, that is actionable right now. And the people that are thriving in terms of the influencers on diabetes, that's what they're doing, because they're talking about their own personal experience living with the condition, which is what people want to see. They want to see the goods. They want to see the bad. And I would say, even for me, I need to post more of the bad. I don't feel like I post enough of the bad. People want to see that stuff. And I hope that everyone that's listening to this, and everyone that's listening to this that also watches me on social media, don't think that all of the things that you see that are positive, that's my whole entire existence. Because, oh my God, it's not. My God, it's not. So it's important to see the good, but it's also important to see the struggles as well. That's what I was trying to say.
I could send you the bad I Hulk smash blood sugar machines as often as possible.
Yeah.
I buy them just to Hulk smash them. Wait, can I say something?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you what?
Thank you. Yeah, you answered the question.
Yeah, you said I wasn't answering the question.
This will literally be one of these moments where everybody goes back and they're like, yeah, he's just digging you. He's digging you to ask a question. Now, I'm not saying, like, it's like when the people say, I could do a podcast. Okay, what are you going to talk about? And then they say this, and then you say, okay, no, what are you going to talk about? Like, what are you going to talk about, bro? And if they get pissed and I knew what I was doing. That was very calculated, but you caught on to it.
I was trying to, and you kept interrupting.
Well, hold on. It's ironic. This is funny to say this. I have a friend who actually has started a podcast working out of your buddy's spot, but
my buddy's spot. What spot?
You know that the studio that we recorded. You know the studio that we recorded
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
Dublin.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been there a couple times, and anything looks. It's like, I mean, not to talk bad, but like, any business is hot and flashy in on opening day, right? Like anything is hot and flashy for 5 to but then what? That's what I say. Then what? And we have differing from you. This is probably the most insider episode you're ever gonna get. I couldn't give two shits about what people. I've never cared about any of that. Never posted, never cared, never this. I feel like my job was to fill like I looked at it as an empty, like it was an empty bucket that I needed to fill, and just fill it with perspective of what it's like to be a person living with diabetes. And you're the guy, you're in the lead, you're the one that can break it down, talk about it, sell it, do what you got to do. But I just need to fill the bucket of like, hey, here's an idea. Here's one person who like, and I always think about that too. This is just me. Like I am me living me, but this is still just me, right? This is still just one, but one person's perspective on a way to think differently and think outside of the box.
But that perspective is important, Graham.
Yeah, I know.
I hope you understand that.
No. But you said it too. Like if perspective is influence, then good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also add to that, if it wasn't from the career and the position that I'm trying to have in the diabetes community of having influence over people in terms of having such positive thought processes about living with diabetes that they can actually live their life. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be on social media. I wouldn't be posting. No freaking way.
Bro, you want to like laugh about careers? If the fucking podcast didn't happen when it did, this home life that we've all kind of lived, like, can you imagine if I had a corporate? Same for me. Can you imagine if I wasn't,
Yeah.
There were, the start. You said
100%.
Like the pillars aligning, like things have aligned in some weird, gross way.
Yeah. I don't know.
The grossest of ways. Let's listen. I do want to say something for the record. I want to leave it. I did not know about Mark Wagner's daughter, and I know all of I need to look. Mark Warner's daughter. Sorry, Mark Warner. Yeah, because he's
I didn't either till I saw it today.
I used to live in Virginia and DC in that area, and I've known about him. She has been around for something, for a reason, and I want to go back and read about it. I suggest you maybe quit. You got to quit like telling all the things that we're going to get to, because we obviously never get to, and that's like the format of the show.
We honestly didn't get to one topic.
But everything you threatened, the problem is everything you threatened, I'm like really excited to talk about all of those. So we'll just
I think the other problem, and if you're listening to this, whether it's on the recording or whether you're live right now, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you guys like when we go off on rants like this? Because I definitely teased 4 different really good topics for today, and we didn't get to one of them. Not one. So they will have to just be on the next episode on Wednesday. Remember, we're going to go live on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Monday, Wednesday, 2 p.m.
We always We're going Monday, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am going to put the link to get on to the live in the show notes on every single episode now. So even if it's not on Instagram, which is where I'm mostly posting the link, you can get the link from the lives or from the show notes of all of the episodes now. It'll just be on the show notes for every single episode. So there's no excuses on why not to get on the live, even if it's just for a couple minutes. Ask a question. We want these lives not just to be us having a conversation about diabetes, but also answering questions. So that's what we really want this to turn into. So the more people that come onto the live, the better it's going to be, because you guys can interact and talk through this hour, and then we can talk to you for the hour. And if enough people come on, maybe I can talk Graham into doing like an hour and a half or a 2-hour show. You never know.
We can get that much more distracted. No, what I've always offered is more. I have always offered more days per. It's to find like regularity in schedule where it's more.
Maybe we'll add another day if more people get on the live. Maybe we'll do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
That would be such that's the beauty. This is like the double-edged sword of diabetes. It's you live it in unison with your life. So I feel like we could just.
Yeah,
it's never ending. It's never ending. It's never ending, dude.
All right. Well, diabetes community, make sure that you hold thoughts for Mark Warner, his family, Senator Mark Warner, his family. It's another tragic ending to someone that was living with type 1 diabetes. So our hearts, our prayers go out to the Warner family and to the whole entire diabetes family. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Please join us on Wednesday, and we will start talking about these topics that we kind of teased today. So thank you so much. And we will see you guys next time.